Good evening, everyone. With my shoes squeaking on the floor, you sure can't get around here quietly, can you? My name is Tom Ross. I'm with the organization called Our Ladies Blue Army. So if you had to remember which one of those two names, remember Our Ladies Blue Army, okay? That's what it's all about. That's why we're here tonight. Because this is a wonderful statue. It is a world-famous statue. It is a priceless work of art. And it has the specific name of the International Pilgrim Virgin Statue of Our Lady of Fatima. And I emphasize international. People say, oh, do you take that all around the United States? No, we take it all around the world. And I'm one of 3 men who does that. There are 3 custodians in the Blue Army, and we take care of the pilgrim statues that travel around. And did you see the beautiful RV she drives around in when she's in the United States? You should see her drive that thing, I'll tell you what, you know. That statue's got a lead foot, I tell you. No, she is made out of wood. People think, oh, porcelain or clay or something. No, she's carved, hand-carved out of wood, mahogany wood. She was carved in the year 1947, and she was carved exactly according to the instructions of Lucia, the oldest of the 3 children who actually saw her. If you know the story of Fatima, you know that all 3 children saw her, but shortly after the last apparition, Jacinta and Francisco got sick with the Spanish flu and they died. So when this statue was carved in 1947, how many years is that after 1917? 30 years later, right? So she was the only one alive. And the sculptor was directed to go speak to her directly and find out all the necessary details to make a very accurate representation of what Our Lady looked like. And so when Lucy saw this final product, she said, now that is the very best likeness of what Our Lady looked like when she appeared to us. Except, here we're shining a light, or 2 lights as it is tonight, 2 lights on this solid object. But Lucy said when Our Lady appeared, the light was coming from her. She was as bright as the sun, and you could see right through her. Lucy said that all 3 of the children knew that that light that they were being bathed in, that light that gave them the feeling of security and calm and peace and love, that was the light and love of God. It wasn't just some heavenly glow. It was the very light and love of God that they were in. Now, this statue was also blessed on October 13th. You know the significance of that day? That was the anniversary of the last apparition of Our Lady at Fatima. She came 6 times. May was the first time, so it came May, June, July, August, September, October. October 13th was her last appearance. This statue was blessed on October 13th, 1947, in honor of that last apparition of Our Lady. And when it was blessed, the Bishop of Fatima blessed her, and he said he wanted Our Lady herself to accompany this image wherever she goes in the world to bring the grace of God to those people who cannot travel all the way to faraway Portugal. And, you know, from the time the apparitions happened and from the time they built the first chapel and put the first statue of Our Lady of Fatima there, pilgrims began going there. And yes, there were some miracles that happened, some healings, some cures, some conversions, right? The bishop wanted that same effect to take place wherever this statue went in the world. Why would you have to go all the way to Portugal? Our Lady is with you wherever you are, and he wanted her to come and remind you of that. And so that's what we do. I'm not here tonight to preach to the choir, as the people say, you know. No, my purpose is, I'm with who? What's the organization? The Blue Army. So my purpose is to rally the troops, okay? I came here to give you a command of what Our Lady gave us a command to do, and I expect you to join in doing it. I literally want you to join our Blue Army. So we do have these forms in the back on the table there. You can fill out your name and address and email address and tear it off and put it in the box, and there you go. You'll get an email welcoming you into the Blue Army, and I hope you literally do that. If you don't want to go to that extreme, at least put into practice what Our Lady told us to do, which is on the front of this little blue card, okay? So the blue part of it is to tear off to give to us, but if you just want to do what she said, then you keep the front part with Her Lady's picture, because right there, in a nutshell, is what Our Lady came to ask us to do. And I say that I literally want you to join the Blue Army because that indeed is what Our Lady wants. It's what Jesus wants. And why do I say that? When Our Lady appeared to the 3 children in 1917, she said to them, and then to all of us by extension, these words. Jesus wishes to make me known and loved. Jesus wishes to establish devotion to my immaculate heart. Jesus wishes to make use of you. That's what he wants of all of us, not just them. But he began with them. Now, why did our Blessed Mother have to come? It's 103 years now. This coming May, it'll be 103 years. Wasn't it good enough for Jesus to come 2,000 years ago? Why did the Blessed Mother have to come? Did we not learn from Jesus himself? What was so important? Well, let's examine that. Think about 103 years ago. What was going on in this world at the time? It actually began around 1914, 1915. Before Our Lady ever appeared, there was a war going on, right? There was a war in this world. There was a literal conflict of man against man, and they invented weapons that had never been seen before. They invented tanks, airplanes, submarines. It was the industrial age. Things were changing. Weaponry was changing, and the carnage was horrific. The world had never seen the kind of death and devastation as what they were witnessing. And so people at that time said, this has got to be the war to end all wars. Nothing could be as bad as what we're seeing. But you know, in the Bible, St. Paul tells us, it is not against flesh and blood that we contend, but against principalities and powers and rulers of this present darkness. So yes, something, in addition to the world conflict they were witnessing, something more sinister was behind it all. And if you remember the man named Karl Marx, you heard that name, in the 1800s he wrote a book called The Communist Manifesto. It was his idea, his ideology, that what we needed was a world without kings and peasants, without rich people and poor people. They needed a society where everybody was the same and a society without God. He didn't think God existed. God was just an opiate, just a drug for those people who were too weak to make it through the struggles of life. So he had this plan that they would have a world of communist revolution. In 1910, before Our Lady appeared, members of the Masonic Lodge took over that country, and they did make it illegal to practice the Catholic faith. A Catholic faith, that country had been so Catholic 300 years prior, they had consecrated the entire country to Our Lady. But in 1910, these men took over the country and made it illegal to practice the Catholic faith. Now, at the same time, other sinister, more violent revolutionaries had more sinister plans. In 1917, the same time that Our Lady appeared, these men went into the country called Russia, and they killed the Tsar and the Tsarina. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they went into their bedroom and got them, took them out. They also took their children. They took the butler, the maid, the chauffeur. They shot them all in the middle of the night. You think that's bad enough? They hacked their bodies into pieces. What a horrible man. Reminds you of modern-day abortion, doesn't it? Hacked their bodies into pieces, poured acid all over their body and their skin, and then threw those body parts down an empty mine shaft out in the woods. They took over that country by force. They killed priests. They killed nuns. They closed churches. It was illegal to practice religion. Anyone got caught practicing the religion would be shot or exiled. It was a horrific time. This is part of the backdrop of why Our Lady had to come. It was a critical time. It was the very dawn, the very beginning. I mean, atheism had always existed since the time of Christ. People didn't believe he was the Messiah. But this was a critical time in human history, because while this First World War was going on, and Our Lady appeared to the 3 children, she said, this war will end. But if people don't do what I've come to ask them to do, there will be a second war and a worse war. How could anything be worse than what they were witnessing? She promised a second war if we don't do what she asked us to do. And you and I have 20/20 hindsight. We can look back on history. We know there was a second war. That's why we call it World War I and World War II, right? There was a second war, and it was horrific. And if you think about it, it started in Europe, but then Japan dropped bombs on Pearl Harbor, right? United States declared war, we got involved. Now, we were battling in that war, and for many years we tried to bring it to an end, and then we too invented a weapon never seen before by mankind on Earth. We invented an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb, and we flew one plane over one city and dropped one bomb, and in a heartbeat, we killed thousands of people. Blink of an eye. Less than a second. And that wasn't enough. The Japanese didn't surrender. So we flew a second plane over a second city, dropped a second bomb, and killed thousands of people again. Yes, God knew that mankind was going to develop the kind of weaponry that if we had a World War III with nuclear bombs, it could mean the end of all life on earth as we know it. Pope John Paul II, we call him now Saint John Paul the Great, right? He said regarding the apparitions at Fatima, Our Lady is anxious to save mankind from self-destruction. She came with a plan for us to put into practice to bring peace on this earth, to stop the spread of evil and turn back that tide. When you look at our world today, were those communists successful? In part they were. I mean, obviously, we didn't do what Our Lady asked because we have communist China, communist Korea, communist Cuba, communist North Korea, communist Vietnam. And I even suggest there's people in this country here now trying to implement communist ideas. We still have work to do. Pope Benedict XVI said regarding the apparitions at Fatima, you would be mistaken to think that the prophetic mission of Fatima is complete. No, it's very much important today. We still have to put into practice today, 103 years later, what Our Lady came and asked us to do. And how did that happen? It was May 1917. It was the 13th day, in fact. Children didn't know that. They didn't go to school. They didn't know how to read or write. They didn't know the days of the week. Their job was to take the sheep out into the field and made sure they got pasture and bring them home at night. You know, this was a very remote village where they lived. Only 200 people in the whole town, no cars, no grocery stores, right? You had to grow your own vegetables, raise your own rabbits and chickens and sheep, make your own clothes. That's how remote this was, and so far away from the war. But the children knew there was a war because some of the men from their village had gone. They were gone, taken away. This was the place that God chose to send a messenger. Now, if you know the story of Fatima, you know that the first messenger wasn't Our Lady at all. In 1916, Lucia, first with some other friends, saw an angel. But then the next time she saw the angel, she wasn't with those same friends. She was with her cousins. And they kept it secret. They felt almost, it was demanded of them to keep secret what they had witnessed. But they had seen an angel. Not just once, but he had come 3 times. And we have a bookmark in the back called the Fatima Prayers, the Angel Prayer. It's Angel Prayer bookmark. And on the back, it has the prayers that the angel taught them, the angel of peace. But I don't have time to go into all the details with you tonight of all the angel visits and all 6 of Our Lady's visits. So instead, I just have time to emphasize for you tonight 2 things. What Lucy said was the most important, thing she learned, the most important part of the message of Fatima. I want to emphasize that tonight. And then I want to tell you something that Our Lady said every single time that she came. It was so important, she repeated it every time. So on that very first day when the children were out in the field, there they were, beautiful cloudless spring day. They were playing games. Suddenly a flash of light. Now first Lucy thought it was a lightning bolt, right? They'd never seen anything flash like that except for lightning in the sky. But they were puzzled because there wasn't a single cloud to be seen. But still Lucy told her cousins, we better get the sheep back to the safety of the farm before it starts raining. And then even before they could get the sheep back up to the road, a second flash. And there's this beautiful lady dressed in white, standing on top of a little tree with a cloud at her feet. She's so radiant. Lucy sees her and says, where did you come from? And the lady says, I am from heaven. But at one point, Lucy says, what do you want of us? My friends, do you know the message of Fatima? Do you know all of what Our Lady wants of us? Are you living it today? If not, that's why I'm here tonight. It's sort of like when you go and, you check into a hotel and you tell the desk downstairs, give me a wake-up call at 7 o'clock or 8. You know what? This is your wake-up call, okay? Revisit the message of Fatima. To do that, go to our website, bluearmy.com. You can learn the whole message, all the angel visits and everything. You can spend as much time as you want. There's things you can read. I encourage you, please go to that website and revisit Fatima, the message of Fatima. But I want to emphasize, as I said, the most important thing. So on that very first day that Our Lady appeared, and here's these 3 innocent children. At the time, Jacinta was 7 years old. Her brother Francisco was 9, and their cousin Lucia was 10. Are there any 7-year-olds here tonight? Anybody 9 years old? 10 years old? It's hard to imagine that, if God wanted to change the world, why didn't he send a messenger to the Pope or some great world leader or a president, It's these innocent, ignorant, and I mean that in a nice way. They weren't stupid. They just didn't go to school, right? They were innocent, ignorant children. And that's who he sends the Mother of God to. And that very first day that she was there, she asked them this question. Are you willing to offer yourselves to God? And this is where you have to turn up your hearing aid or perk up your ears. She says, and are you willing to accept all the suffering that God wishes to send you in reparation for sin and for the conversion of sinners? Such a weighty question for children. Will you suffer? But isn't that what this crucifix shows us? There's Christ, arms outstretched. He suffered greatly until he died on the cross. Why did he do that? For the conversion of sinners, in reparation for sin, for the forgiveness of sin, right? Our Lady has said, will you be like my son? Will you be like Jesus? She's asking those children, will you be my children and be just like my son Jesus and accept the suffering that God wants to send you? Now remember, in the Bible, Jesus, we're told, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he goes off with, Peter, James, and John says, stay here, and he goes and he prays. What does he pray? Father, if it is possible, take this cup away from me. But not my will, your will be done. He prayed it not once, but 3 times. Our Lady asked, will you accept the suffering that God wishes to send you, that you may not want to have? It's perfectly all right to make that prayer, oh God, I can't stand this, take it away. But if he doesn't, will you accept the suffering that he wishes to send you and make it for the intention of the reparation of sin in this world and the conversion of sinners? Lucy spoke for all 3 of the children. She said yes. Yes. She later writes in her memoirs, I really didn't know what I was saying yes to at the time. I suppose no more than the Blessed Mother herself, a teenage girl, when an angel comes and says, you will be the mother of the Son, Christ. And, yeah, okay. Does she really understand all the implications? Lucy says yes. And she said later in her memoirs, I say yes every single day of my life. Yes to the will of God, even if it means suffering, for the reparation of sin and for the conversion of sinners. Well, after she gave that yes, then Our Lady looked down at her and said, then you will have much to suffer. But my friends, she's not telling us that we have to white knuckle it through life, grit your teeth and just, can't stand it. She goes on to say, but the grace of God will be your comfort, and my Immaculate Heart will be your refuge, and the way that will lead you to God. So you know what she's saying here? What does she mean? A refuge. Refuge. What if there's a tornado coming at us right now? A horrible storm. You would seek a safe place to go, right? Not on top of this hill, maybe down to the bottom into a basement somewhere. A safe shelter to go. Our Blessed Mother says, no matter what harm is coming your way, no matter what threat of violence or world war or coronavirus or terrorism or whatever it is, diagnosis of cancer, death of a loved one, economic reversal, her Immaculate Heart is our safe place to go. But how do we get there? This is what she means. Every time that she appeared to the children, she told them, Pray the rosary. Pray the rosary that this war will come to an end. That's how powerful the rosary could be. She's asking children to pray to end the war through this prayer. Pray the rosary for peace on earth. Pray the rosary every day. Now, mind you, the children were good children, and they were obedient to their mother. And Lucy's mom was a good catechist. She would read the Bible to them and teach them their prayers. And she made her promise, you say the rosary every day at lunchtime. That was a typical Portuguese custom anyway. But she was at a promise, right? This was a good Catholic village they lived in. But they were children, 7, 9, 10. So sometimes when they're out there and they wanted to get down to the business of playing, not this rosary thing, they would go like this. They go, Our Father, Hail Mary, 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 Our Father, right? They wanted to get it over with. And Our Lady didn't say to say the rosary. She said, pray the rosary. And so what she means is we need to focus our mind's eye. We're human beings. We think in pictures, right? Picture the mystery that's announced, right? We have 20 mysteries, right? Right? Picture the mysteries. These are the most important, significant events in the life of Christ, redeeming the world, God's salvific action in the world. And we can look at how much our Blessed Mother had to suffer for that to happen in union with her Son, and how much he suffered to bring about that change in our world. And to emphasize this important idea that Our Lady really did want the children and all of us to accept our suffering offered by God. When she came back in a third apparition, during the July apparition, do you remember? She had her hands in a posture of prayer like you see there, and a rosary in her right hand. But at one point, she put her hands down like the Our Lady of Grace statue that many of you might have seen before. And the children said beams of light came shooting out of the palms of her hand onto the ground in front of the children. And the ground opened up, and they could see down into the earth. And what they saw was what Lucy described as a sea of fire, right? An ocean of flames, huge. And down in there were two things, dark, black, animal-like, but not like any animal you've ever seen on earth. They were horrific. What they knew were demons. And then they also saw human-like forms, but transparent. They were ghostly. You could see through them. And they had flames burning inside of them and burning all around them. And they were all shrieking and groaning in pain and despair. Why did Our Lady show the children this horrific vision? You know, I tried desperately not to let my kids see something bad on television. Don't watch that show. Our Lady showed them this image. To scare them? No, to motivate them. She spoke and she said, you have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go, but to save them. Now, we can't save the people that are already condemned to hell, but she meant all those souls sinning today that you can affect by your life, by your prayer, to save them. God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. And if what I say is done, many souls will be saved, and there will be peace. But she said, many souls go to hell because there is no one who will pray for them and what? Offer sacrifices for them. So you see, the important part of the message of Fatima is twofold. It's prayer and sacrifice. This is exactly what Jesus taught us too. The message of Fatima, what she came to tell the children, was nothing new. Christ himself, when he was on earth, he said, in this world you will have tribulation. He didn't promise peaceful life forever. You will have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world. And it was Christ himself who said, you cannot be my disciple unless you pick up your cross and follow me. And it was Christ who said, there is no greater love than this, than that a man lay down his life for his friends. Now, you and I may never be called upon, to literally die for somebody, to run into a burning building or run up to a car on fire or, a soldier in battle or a policeman, right, in a shootout. But we are all called to live every moment of our life, every day, everything that we do, sacrificially, offering not a bloody red martyrdom, but a white martyrdom with good intentions for the good of the other. The mother that gets up in the middle of the night because her baby's crying, her baby is sick. That's love. That's sacrificial love, right? The husband that goes to work 2 jobs to make enough money to put food on the table or have transportation. That's sacrificial love. That's the kind of thing Our Lady asked the children. Will you accept all the sufferings that God may wish to send you? They so eagerly embraced this idea. Right away, they started giving away their lunches. First, they gave it to the sheep, and then they thought, oh, that's not right. Waste the food like that. They gave it to other hungry children in the village. So they would get hungry at lunchtime, and they were hungering for the salvation of souls, right? In the heat of the summer, they would not drink water on purpose, so they would get thirsty. They were thirsting for the salvation of souls at 7 years old and 9 years old and 10 years old. It's so simple, children can do it, right? So why can't we? Anyway, I hope you see that the picture I'm painting for you tonight is that, the peace Our Lady promised, there will be peace, remember she said? But it's not life without conflict. Can you hear Christ saying, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you, but not as the world gives it do I give you peace, right? He said that to the apostles, and then they all went to a martyr's death. Except John, who they tried to kill and he didn't die. Sacrificial love. This is the message of Fatima. So again, I hope you will go to our website, bluearmy.com, and watch our video or read our magazine, read the blog, freshen up on your understanding of what happened at Fatima, and then begin to put it into practice. I've only told you a couple of things tonight about what Our Lady said, but as I said, on our little card, you can see in a nutshell, the bullet points to get the general picture, and then dive deep into it. We have at our gift shop books that Lucia wrote herself, her own diaries. You can buy them and read them. They're fascinating. But also, as you start to understand what Our Lady has asked, pray the rosary every day, begin to do that. Begin to live it. Put it into action. Our Lady came. She's our 12-star general, right? In charge of the Blue Army, and you are the members of the Army, and she's commanded you to pray the rosary every day. And if you already do, then I challenge you to pray all 20 mysteries every day. At least somehow throughout the day, get all 20 mysteries in. And there's one last thing. The statue's here today, gone tomorrow, as the expression goes. But you're still here, and there's lots of empty space in these pews, and there's people that you live near, people in your grocery store, your restaurant that you frequent, the gas station, people who have never heard of Fatima ever, people who don't know what happened on October 13th. Do you remember what happened October 13th? For those young children who are here, do you know what happened on October 13th? It was horribly raining that day. In fact, it had been raining all week. Now, since the apparitions happened, right from the very beginning, some people thought, hey, maybe that really is a true story. But there's a lot of people who said, no way. You're not seeing the Blessed Mother. Even Lucy's own mom said, I don't believe you. You're a liar. You go down to the priest and go to confession. I'm not going to have my daughter spreading rumors in this village, right? She didn't want to have that happen. So that was a great suffering for Lucy right there. Her own mother didn't believe. And her own mother, her own sisters didn't believe, right? And so that was a suffering from the beginning. And when Our Lady came back, she said, would you please do a miracle so that everyone believes I'm seeing you? People don't believe I'm seeing you. And Our Lady said, there will be a miracle in October, right? Now when Our Lady came back in August, without even asking her, Our Lady reminded Lucia, remember, there will be a miracle in October so that all may believe. And now the month goes by. Now both rumors are spreading. Oh, these children are seeing a woman from heaven, and there's going to be a miracle. Oh, so now the crowds got bigger and bigger. So in September, when Our Lady came again, she reminded, Lucy didn't have to ask, there will be a miracle in October so that all may believe. Well, by the time October got there, there were thousands of people. And we have a picture of it in the vestibule back there. You can look at the bottom of our banner. You'll see all these people have umbrellas because it was raining horribly, cats and dogs. The war that was going on was stranded in the mud. Soldiers said they couldn't move. It was raining cats and dogs on that day when the children came to the tree where Our Lady always appeared. It was raining when there came that flash. But Lucy had called out, pray the rosary. So when they began to pray the rosary, there came that flash, and Our Lady appeared. Now, she told them many things, but one thing she told them was, I have come to warn the people. They must stop offending God with their sins. He is already so much offended. And as I say, she told him other things. That's your homework. But as she started to go back up to heaven, and Lucy's watching her go up to the east, she always went up to the east, suddenly Lucy calls out, "Look at the sun! Look at the sun!" And at that moment, the clouds parted, and you could stare at the sun with your bare eyes. You didn't have to squint. Your eyes weren't burned. You could just stare at it. They said it looked like a great silver disc. And it started moving, not like the sun normally moves. It started going backwards in the sky, and then forward and back. And it started spinning around. And suddenly it started casting colors on the ground. Everything and everybody turned yellow. They were looking at each other and laughing because they were such weird colors. Then everything and everybody turned blue, and everybody red, and went through color after color for like 10 or almost 12 minutes. But at the very end, it looked like that sun was going to come zigzagging down and crash into the earth. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. People thought they were going to die. They thought it was their last day on earth. People fainted in the mud. Some dropped to their knees and called out to God to spare their life and forgive their sins. They confessed their sins out loud in front of the crowd. One little boy who was standing in a puddle of water said he felt the sun get so close, he felt it touch him on the shoulders. His shoulders got nice and toasty warm, right? And then suddenly the sun stopped and went back up to its normal place in the sky, and it was a beautiful, cloudless, sunny day. And this breeze was blowing across the field. And the people that were on the ground, they realized the ground is dry. And when they stood up, there was no mud clinging to their pants or their dresses. Their clothes were clean and dry. And some of the sick people that had come who believed in what the children were seeing, who wanted to be healed, they were miraculously cured and healed. And some of the people who didn't believe that God even existed, they had a change of thought now. They believed that there was a God because nothing could make the sun do what they witnessed that day. And you know what? You did not even have to be in the field that day. There was a teacher with a classroom full of kids 20 miles away, who saw the sun doing something strange that day and took her whole class outside to watch it. And you know, I was up in Oregon in the beginning of, the end of last year in Oregon. I was doing a tour of Oregon. And in a small village, I met a man who said, "My father was the first man from Washington State drafted for World War I. And he told me that in October, he was in France, and the army couldn't move because the trucks and the jeeps, the vehicles were stuck in the mud." He said he remembered that on one October day, all of a sudden, all the mud dried up. And they went back to the normal army fighting as usual. And he didn't even know what was going on in Fatima. It wasn't until later on that he heard about it, and he put two and two together. So you didn't even have to be in the field. It was all the way in France, hundreds of miles away. Yes, a great miracle happened, predicted in advance as to the exact day, the exact time, the exact place. Much like the own resurrection of Christ himself, who told the apostles before it ever happened, "I will rise again from the tomb on the third day." Right? God allowed a great miracle to happen, something we shouldn't forget, something we should spread all around our world to people we know, so that all may believe in what happened at Fatima, and all may put into practice what Our Lady came to ask. Are you willing to offer yourselves to God, and are you willing to accept all the suffering that he may wish to send you in reparation for sin and for the conversion of sinners? She said, if we do this, she promised there will be peace. You know who didn't see the great miracle of the sun? The three children. Lucy writes in her memoirs, instead of seeing the sun dancing around, she saw visions. First she saw Jesus and Mary. Jesus was blessing the world. She saw Our Lady of Sorrows. And when that vision faded, as you mentioned, they saw Our Lady of Mount Carmel dressed in all brown. And she was holding in her hand a scapular. She was holding it out like this. Lucy said she didn't say anything at that point. But when the apparitions were over and people were asking, "What did you see? What did you see? What did Our Lady tell you?" She says, "Our Lady wants everyone to wear the scapular. Wearing the scapular and praying the rosary, these are our weapons to turn back the tide of evil. The rosary and the scapular are inseparable. This scapular was given many hundreds of years before Fatima ever happened. She gave it to St. Simon Stock, and she made a promise to those who die, having faithfully worn this my garment, they will never see the fires of hell. She would be giving them all the grace necessary to avoid hell, all the grace necessary to at least live a holy life. Now, she didn't promise you wouldn't see purgatory, but she later came and said that she would come on the first Saturday after your death and remove all those who had faithfully worn this, her garment. So such great promises of the grace necessary to have eternal life with her and her son. But to wear the scapular is not a lucky charm. It's not like a rabbit's foot in your pocket. You just don't put it on and, okay, now I'm going to heaven, my ticket. No, you have to agree to do a few things. You become actually a Carmelite. When, people say, have these been blessed? Because we have them on the table back there. Have these been blessed? It's not a matter of just blessing that. When you choose to wear the scapular, you are choosing to tell the Blessed Mother and her son, I promise you, I will pray the rosary every day. I will frequent confession and frequent communion. I will be chaste according to my state in life, right? You promise her that you will turn to her in all your needs, great and small, and allow her to lead you to her son and to get his response. As I said, this is not a matter of just blessing the scapular. There's when the priest or deacon, could be either one, when they do the ceremony, it's, the rite of investiture is what it's called. It's very similar to a man or a woman who wants to become a full-fledged, Carmelite. They have to go and take vows. And then when they take their vow, they're given their habit, right? They're given their clothes to wear, right? And part of it is that the piece of cloth that goes over their shoulders, their head goes over their head onto their shoulders. They tie a rope in front and back, right? That cloth is meant to keep them clean when they go about their tasks, their duties. Well, in a sense, this is your scapular meant to keep you clean spiritually, right? And so it requires that the priest invoke God. Yes, he will bless the scapular with holy water and bless it, but he more importantly is invoking God to bless you. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Once you become a priest, you're a priest forever. When you become a Carmelite, you're a Carmelite forever. You become... When you ask to be enrolled in the brown scapular, it's a one-time, lifetime thing, and you are enrolled forever. Your soul has been marked. You don't have to do it again. If this breaks, if it wears out, if you lose it, you need to get another one, just go get another one and put it on. It doesn't have to be blessed a second time because you have that blessing. So I hope you understand those things and what I've tried to communicate to you tonight. So thank you very much for your time and for being here and in your devotion to Our Lady and our Lord. Thank you.